aspects about about designing this offense. One of the factors was good tight ends, and that was influence in what you were doing. What were the other factors that went into your design of this offense and what you were trying to capitalize on personnel-wise and things like that?
Yeah, again, it goes back to personnel. So I think you've got a really good running back in Josh. So, obviously trying to feature what runs, kind of extra what Josh does well, and kind of how it works off of that. What the quarterback does well, or quarterbacks, obviously, and you kind of build it around your personnel. So, when we got here, there were a bunch of good tight ends here. So obviously, we're going to feature that position a little bit more. Obviously, really excited about the running back and the other guys behind him. I think Dimitri has done a really good job, and the fact that we got a healthy Irby and Kaz can add to the mix. You got a little bit more depth at that position. I think the ability to factor in the quarterback can run a little bit. So the defense has to be able to stay honest and can't collapse just on the single nature of just a one-back run game, because the quarterback can be the second back in that offense. Incorporating the wideouts and what they do well. Kyle Phillips is a kid that's really kind of emerged as a really good option route runner, and he's done a really good job of that. So it's just, kind of plugging and playing and finding out what you guys do well and try to play to your strengths.
How would you say this offense has evolved in the last 5 games? You guys are leading the Pac-12 in a lot of categories offensively.
I just think we're executing. It goes back to what we talk about all the time. It's about execution, and give all the credit to the players, and that's what they're doing. They're doing a really good job of executing. They're on the same page, and that takes a while, no matter who it is. And it's, to know exactly when you look at the play where we scored right at the end of the first half. Where Dorian lets the ball go before Kyle makes his cut. But there's so much work that Dorian and Kyle have put in together. We did a really good job in protection on that. Got Kyle isolated on the safety. He made a great move on the safety. But Dorian threw the ball before he made the move, knowing, because they're on the same page, where they're going to be. And it was a bang-bang play right in the corner, and we end up scoring. And that's what execution is all about. I mean, you can draw lines on paper and say, hey, this works versus this coverage and this works versus that coverage. You have to go out and actually execute it. And again, the credit goes to the players. The players are the ones that execute.
Colorado's got one of the best receivers in the country in Chanel. How do you scheme to kind of try and hold him in check?
Well, they've got some other guys too, so you can't just say, hey, let's take away 2 and then we're good. KD Cannon can stretch you and run as fast as anybody that we faced this year. So he's a really good player too. And there's other guys that along with him. So you have to be cognizant of what 2 is every time when he lines up, and kind of what we can do to make sure we know where he is and what routes they like to throw to him and what are his strengths. But you'll give Colorado credit in terms of what they do. They move him around. They'll line him up at quarterback. And so you gotta make sure that, how do you handle the Wildcat stuff that he does. But I think really the first and foremost is just finding out where he is and in whatever position they deploy him to, what do they like to do when he's at those positions. And I think our coaches have done a good job of scouting that. Now, again, it goes back to what we just talked about, execution. We can all identify where he is, but we still have to be able to execute when we're on coverage against him.
Calvert, is he available this week? It's game 9?
Right now, no.
Is it possible that he can come back this season?
Yeah. I don't have an answer, so his status hasn't changed.
Okay. What are you waiting for?
What's that?
What are you waiting for?
Okay, that he can play. So they tell us.
Where's that come from? Where does that come from?
School.
Okay. Guys like Kaz and Irby, are you weighing, if they only play 4 games, they can use this as a red shirt, or things like that, things that you look at?
We're trying to be Colorado. So they both could sprain their ankles in a Colorado game, and then we don't even have to have a conversation. So you have a conversation when you get to the 4th game, and then when is the 5th game. So right now, who are the best players available to us to beat Colorado, and that's how we do it. So to match this up and say, hey, he's going to play in this game, and this game, and this game, and then in the first quarter of the game you said he was game 1, he goes down. Well, that plan's out the window, so that's why we don't do it that way. We do it when the kid gets to a 4th game, then you make a decision of, all right, now what are we going to do? If we play him 1 snap in the next game, then you can't redshirt him. That's when the conversation has to start. The conversation doesn't start now. It's just, where are we? What do we do? Kaz played in his first game. He's got 1. And then we'll see what happens and how the season goes. But to plan on things that you don't have any control over, because, again, he could get hurt in game 2, and then we spent 4 hours as a staff talking about how we were going to manipulate and work this thing, and we don't have any control over it. So we'll have control over it when he plays in his fourth, then you make a decision of, is there an opportunity to play in a fifth?
Were there guys in that last game last year against Stanford that you didn't play because you wanted to preserve the redshirt?
No, we didn't run into that conversation. There were kids that played in the Stanford game, Greg Dulcich, Alex Anderson, John Gaines, kids like that we knew. Rashad, some guys down the stretch that got an opportunity to play in games because we knew where we were. Guidry was a kid that played games earlier in the season that didn't come into the Stanford game, but he had played 4 games earlier in the season, so we didn't let him play towards the end of the season because we were saving his red shirt. So we do it all on an individual basis based upon when that guy has played in his fourth, then you make the decision when he's going into his fifth. But you can't control the injury factor at that position. You know, you may get to a point where, hey, we don't want to play him in the fifth game, but you have nobody left. So you either got to play him or nobody, and so we got to, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out exactly the way you want it to work out. That's why we wait until they get 4 in, and then you make a decision after the 4th.
Dorian looks like he's moving around all right. Is he all right?
Yeah.
He should be fine for Saturday, it seems like.
That's what we hope. I don't know, because something happened today.
Right? On this trajectory.
On this, you know, on any trajectories are a really interesting thing. So it's the same thing we talk about momentum. Momentum's an interesting thing. It can go up and it can go down.
A couple weeks ago, when we talked about the California legislation, you said you weren't really thinking about it because it wasn't going to take place until 2023. But now with the NCAA ruling yesterday, it's 2021.
Yeah.
So it's going to affect some of these kids that are on the roster now, some of the younger guys.
Yeah, but we don't have any answers. So all you know is that they voted to pass an image and likeness. When they gave you the details of what that means, then what's our plan to go in place? But for us to have a meeting right now to talk about what is the rule.
Right, but generally, are you in favor of players being able to take advantage of their likeness?
I've always been in favor of that. I said that the first time. You know, I think it's a benefit to the student athletes, and there's an Olympic model out there that I don't think the Olympics got wrecked when those people had an opportunity to make money off of their name and image and likeness. So I think anything that's positive for the student athletes is a benefit to the student athletes. I'm 100% for. What the implementation of these rules are, I don't know. There's a rule out there saying now they're going to get taxed. No one knows exactly what's going to go on. So it's presumptuous of me to say that this is a fantastic rule. This could turn into a real negative rule. I don't know. I said what I do know is that anything that benefits the student athletes, I'm for, and I've been for this for a long time. So, but there has to be a well thought out plan that has to be implemented, and until we get the details of what that plan is, I don't know. You know, maybe credit goes to the state of California for making this conversation go faster. So, congrats to Governor Newsom. But besides that, until the plan is put in place and we know what it is, to comment on, yeah, this is good or this is, you know, not exactly what I thought it was, because no one really knows what the implementation is. From what I understood, the NCAA has charged each division with now come back up with a model, you know, whether it's Division I, Division II, Division III, of how it's going to be implemented, and that there aren't any details of that. And I think that the key to this whole thing, when it's all said and done, is what are the details, and so we'll figure that out. But anything that benefits the student athlete, I've always been for.
The school has, you guys have alumni on the sidelines for football games at the Rose Bowl this year. Is that something that you've noticed? Is that helpful in recruiting to maybe have, you know, a guy like Troy Aikman at a game on the sideline? Is that, like, your eyes are
confusing question here. I think that happens.
Thing
that happens everywhere.
Football, but there's like a new thing this year, I think, where there's alumni on the field at the Rose Bowl.
Not that I know. I don't think that's a new thing.
Am I totally wrong on this?
I don't know anything. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are on our sideline. There's a lot of guys that are on our sideline. LeBron James was on our sideline when we were at Oregon. So it wasn't Chris Paul. So it wasn't Dennis Dixon. So it wasn't Jonathan Stewart. So it wasn't anything. I think that goes on everywhere. I mean, you watch any college football game, they're always panning the crowd and saying who's on the sideline. So that's why I gave you the eyes. I'm not surprising to me that Troy came to a game, and he's a good friend and very been unbelievably supportive to this football program. But that doesn't surprise me that Troy was on the sideline. Terry Donahue's been on the sideline. There's been a lot of Don Blumenauer was on the sideline. Joe Ferrier was on the sideline a couple of weeks ago, right? Jordan Zumwalt. I think that's gone on, and that went on last year too. So those guys were around. So it's not new. That's why I kind of rolled my eyes and said, I don't think it's a new initiative. And where I've been before, whether it was at New Hampshire or whatever. So if I went back to a New Hampshire game, I would stand on the sideline and watch a game. So I don't think that's new. And I think it goes on at every other college. So if that's new, last year we had guys on our sideline that were former players that came back. Jonathan Ogden came back last year. Coach Vermeil came back last year and saw him. Probably needed a couple calls from him. We were playing Stanford. I wish he could have helped me a little bit better, but I don't think that's new. from what I understand. So if it is new, then
would you be the most famous New Hampshire football legend to stand on the sideline?
There's a lot of those.
All right.
There's a lot of those. That's why it's such a good school.
You faced two young, inexperienced quarterbacks the last two games. What is a veteran like Steven Montez? What kind of problems does he bring?
I think they got a really good scheme, and then obviously, like anybody, when you have more experience in your scheme, you know, they kept the coordinator from a year ago. You know, so Darren's still there. So I think there's a lot of things that they've done the last couple of years. And anytime, you know, the one thing in college football is the teams that have the most experience are usually a little bit more successful. And I was always been a big fan of Steven ever since the first time I saw him play. I think I was in the NFL, but he went up to Autzen Stadium as a young freshman and won a game up there against Oregon. So he's been a very, very productive player in this league, one of the top quarterbacks in this league for a couple of years now. So, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, the first time he sees something is probably not the first time that it's been shown to him. So I don't think you're going to surprise a veteran quarterback like that. It's like going against a KJ Costello. You know, you got a guy who's got a really good feel and grasp of what's going on. And, you know, we got a ton of respect for him. I think he's a heck of a quarterback. And it's going to be one of the battles is how do we defend him, because I think he runs that offense well.
Thanks.